The sun was already bright over the city when Arya knelt by the fountain in the plaza, scrubbing her worn-out shoes with a small piece of soap. Her hands trembled from the cold water, but her heart was beating faster than ever. Tomorrow was her graduation day, the day she had dreamed about for years. She had worked part-time at a bakery, cleaned offices at night, and studied by candlelight in her small shared room, just to reach this moment. But when she lifted her shoes from the water and saw the cracked leather split apart, her heart sank. They were too old, too broken to wear. She stared at them silently for a long moment, then closed her eyes and whispered, "Please, not today." If you believe kindness can still change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, where real stories of compassion remind us that small acts can heal the world. Arya didn't know that while she was drying her shoes on the fountain's edge, a tall man in a gray suit was standing across the street, watching her. His name was Jace Nolan, 32 years old, calm-eyed and impeccably dressed, the CEO of Nolan Enterprises, a company that had built its empire on fashion retail. But Jace wasn't just out there for a business meeting that morning. He had stopped for a coffee after visiting the orphanage he sponsored quietly under another name. He noticed Arya because she reminded him of someone, his younger sister, who had once gone to college with nothing but faith and determination. Arya had no idea who he was. She just saw a man with kind eyes watching her as she struggled to glue the torn sole of her shoe. Embarrassed, she turned away. But Jace walked closer, quietly placing his coffee cup on the edge of the fountain. "Those are some determined shoes," he said softly, almost as if talking to himself. Arya looked up startled, but managed a small smile. "They've taken me through everything," she replied, still pressing the glue. "I just need them to last one more day. My graduation is tomorrow." Jace nodded slowly, sensing the quiet pride in her voice. She didn't ask for pity. She was just trying to make things work. Before he could say anything else, she stood up, bowed her head politely, and hurried away with her half-dry shoes in hand. Later that afternoon, Arya stood outside a small shoe store window, her eyes fixed on a pair of simple white heels. Nothing fancy, just clean and elegant, perfect for graduation. But the price tag made her chest tighten. She turned away, whispering to herself that dreams could wait. She could still make tomorrow special with whatever she had. That night, she ironed her thrifted white dress, polished her cracked shoes, and stared at her reflection in the small mirror taped to the wall. Just one more day, she told herself again. She didn't realize the world had already noticed her small act of hope. The next morning, rain clouds hung low over the city. Arya walked to the ceremony barefoot under her gown, carrying her broken shoes in a plastic bag. She would wear them only once she reached the hall. But halfway there, the rain began to pour heavily, turning the streets into mirrors. She stopped under the canopy of a tall building, trying to shield herself. That's when she saw him again. Jace Nolan, standing near the entrance, holding an umbrella. He looked surprised to see her, drenched and shivering. Without thinking, he stepped forward, offering her his umbrella. "You again," he said with a faint smile. Arya hesitated. "Thank you, sir, but I'm okay," she whispered, clutching her bag tightly. Then her eyes fell on his shoes, polished, black leather, shining even in the rain. Something inside her broke quietly, and before she could stop herself, she said it. "Can I borrow your shoes for my graduation?" Her voice was trembling, but her eyes were steady. She wasn't joking. She wasn't begging. She was simply asking, like someone who had run out of options but still refused to give up. Jace froze, not because of the question, but because of the honesty behind it. There was silence for a moment, only broken by the soft rhythm of the rain. Then, without a word, he looked down, slipped off his shoes, and handed them to her. "Go make your moment count," he said. Arya stared in disbelief. "Sir, but he shook his head gently. "It's just a pair of shoes. You're walking into your future." Tears filled her eyes as she took them. They were slightly big, but she wore them proudly, holding the umbrella over her head as she ran toward the university hall. Inside, people stared, some admiring, some whispering, but she didn't care. She walked the stage with a radiant smile, wearing a pair of shoes that belonged to a man she thought was just a kind stranger. Hours later, she returned to the same building to return them. She waited by the entrance, but he wasn't there. So she left them with the security guard, wrapped neatly in a paper bag, along with a handwritten note that said, "Thank you for helping me walk with dignity today." Jace found the bag that evening, and when he opened it, he saw not just his shoes, but something else inside, a small medal she had received at graduation. The note at the bottom said, "For believing in me when I couldn't." He smiled quietly. There was something pure about this girl's heart, something he couldn't forget. Weeks passed. Arya started working at a small clothing stall downtown. She was humble, patient, and always smiling even when customers were rude or dismissive. One afternoon, she was restocking items when a luxury black car stopped outside. A man in a gray suit stepped out. Her hands froze when she recognized him. "Sir," she gasped, feeling embarrassed to be seen in her apron and worn sandals. Jace smiled. "So you do remember me?" He looked around the tiny shop and then back at her. "I'm here to offer you something," he said softly. "I own a company that believes in stories like yours. We design affordable graduation attire for students who can't afford it. I need someone who understands that struggle, someone like you, to help us manage our new outreach branch." Arya blinked in disbelief. "Me? But I'm not qualified. I just finished college." Jace shook his head. "You're more than qualified. You know what it means to dream with empty pockets." Her eyes filled with tears. She looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because," Jace said, "you taught me something that money couldn't buy. That kindness isn't about wealth, it's about heart." That day changed everything. Arya joined the company, helping design and deliver affordable graduation kits to thousands of struggling students. Each package came with a note that said, "Walk with pride. Your future deserves good shoes." Months later, at a grand charity event hosted by the company, Arya stood on the stage, her story shared across the room. Cameras flashed, people clapped, but she couldn't stop smiling when she saw Jace at the back, nodding with quiet pride. She remembered every tear, every night she almost gave up, every moment she thought her dreams were too small, and realized they had led her right here. After the event, she found Jace standing by the garden balcony, looking at the city lights. She walked up beside him holding something wrapped in white paper. When he opened it, he found a new pair of shoes, simple, elegant, handmade. "They're from our new line," she said softly. "Consider it my thank you." He smiled, touched by the gesture. "Then we're even," he replied. Arya looked out at the city, the wind brushing her hair. "No," she said, shaking her head with a smile. "You gave me my first step. I'm just walking the rest of the way." And for a long moment, they stood there in silence. The girl who once had nothing but broken shoes, and the man who had everything but found meaning again in a single act of kindness.